The chandelier crystal trembled as Anna Whitmore crossed the entrance to the Pemberton ballroom. It wasn't the wind that made it sway, but the sudden silence that descended upon the 200 guests like a funeral pall. Conversations ceased. Mid-sentence, glasses paused in the air before touching lips, and even the musicians hesitated in their scores. Margaret Pemberton, hostess of Boston's most prestigious reception of the 1847 season, felt the blood run cold in her veins. Her gloved hands clutched her ivory fan so tightly that the delicate carvings left marks on her palm. It couldn't be. It was simply impossible. Anna remained motionless on the doorway threshold, unaware of the commotion her presence had caused. Her grey-blue silk dress, borrowed from her Aunt Cordelia, billowed softly around her ankles. It was a simple garment, compared to the elaborate ensembles of Bostonian society ladies, yet her natural elegance transcended any ornament. Her golden hair was swept into a low chignon, with a few strands escaping in delicate curls that framed her oval face with alabaster skin. "My God," murmured Cordelia Ashford beside her niece, her voice barely a tremulous whisper. She had anticipated Anna would make an impression. The girl was truly beautiful, but she hadn't expected this reaction. The gazes fixed on Anna were not of common admiration. They were of profound shock, as if they were seeing a ghost. From the other side of the ballroom, by the windows overlooking the torchlit gardens, Vincent Blackwell dropped his glass of French champagne. The crystal shattered against the polished marble, the sound echoing through the silent room like a pistol shot. His dark eyes, usually cold and calculating, widened with an intensity that bordered on madness. Evelyn. The name resounded in his mind like a painful echo. Every feature of that face was identical to that of the woman he had loved and lost 5 years before. The same curved lips, the same blue eyes like the winter sky, the same graceful tilt of the head. It was as if Evelyn Blackwell had resurrected from the dead to torment him. Vincent took a step forward, then another, moving through the motionless crowd like a man in a trance. At 35, he was considered one of Boston's most powerful men, owner of a fortune built on maritime trade and railroad investments. His presence normally commanded respect and admiration, but at this moment he seemed vulnerable, stripped of all his social armor. Anna finally noticed the fixed stares and felt her cheeks flush. She had grown up in the simplicity of her late father's farm in Concord, far from the refinements of high society. Aunt Cordelia had insisted she needed to see the world beyond the wheat fields and barns, that at 22 it was time to find a suitable husband. But now Anna wondered if it wouldn't have been better to stay home, tending to the chickens and reading her poetry books by the fireplace. "Why is everyone staring like that?" she whispered to her aunt, her white silk gloves nervously clutching her small beaded reticule. Cordelia couldn't answer immediately. She herself was trying to process the extraordinary situation. She had known Evelyn Blackwell only in passing, at a few receptions years before, but the resemblance was undeniable and disturbing. It was as if nature had decided to recreate a lost soul in a new form. "Cordelia." Margaret Pemberton's voice sounded strained as she approached, her quick steps making the fabric of her claret velvet gown rustle against the floor. "Who is this?" "Young woman, my niece, Anna Whitmore," Cordelia replied, lifting her chin with dignity. "Daughter of my late brother William." Margaret studied Anna with piercing eyes, noting every detail that confirmed her suspicions. The resemblance was more than remarkable. It was uncanny. "Where does she come from?" "Concord. She has lived there all her life with her father, until he passed away last winter." While the two women conversed in low tones, Vincent continued his approach. Other guests moved out of his way, recognizing the dangerous intensity in his movements. Some whispered among themselves, recalling the tragedy that had befallen the first Mrs. Blackwell, found dead in the garden of her estate one foggy October morning, with no satisfactory explanation for her premature death. When Vincent finally stopped before Anna, the silence in the ballroom became absolute. Even the servants ceased their duties, holding their silver trays in the air like statues. Anna raised her eyes to meet his and felt a shiver run down her spine. There was something familiar in that angular face, in those eyes that seemed laden with ancient pain. Vincent was undeniably handsome, with dark, wavy hair and broad shoulders that perfectly filled his black velvet coat. But there was a deep sorrow etched on his features that touched something in her compassionate heart. "Miss." His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in days. "Whitmore," Anna completed softly, making a slight curtsy. Anna Whitmore. The name sounded musical on her lips, and Vincent closed his eyes briefly, as if each syllable were a stab. When he opened them again, he had regained a measure of his usual composure, though his hands still trembled imperceptibly. "Vincent Blackwell," he introduced himself, executing a formal bow. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Miss Whitmore." But Anna could see that it was not pleasure he felt. It was something far more complex and disturbing. There was recognition in his eyes, as if he knew her from somewhere she couldn't identify. And there was pain, an anguish so profound that she felt an urge to reach out and touch his face in solace. "The pleasure is mine, Mr. Blackwell," she replied, her naturally gentle voice softening the tension in the air somewhat. Around them, conversations gradually resumed, though in lower tones and with furtive glances constantly directed at the unlikely pair. The orchestra resumed its waltz, and couples began to move again across the dance floor. But there was a forced quality to the normalcy everyone attempted to re-establish. Vincent couldn't take his eyes off Anna. Every movement she made, every expression, was like a painful memory come to life. But there were differences too, subtle, yet discernible to someone who had loved Evelyn so deeply. Anna possessed a genuine innocence that Evelyn had lost years before her death. There was a natural kindness in her eyes that was entirely her own. "May I have the honor of this dance?" he asked, extending his gloved hand. Anna hesitated, glancing quickly at Aunt Cordelia, who nodded almost imperceptibly. It was a considerable honor to be chosen by the tycoon Vincent Blackwell, despite the strange circumstances. "It would be a pleasure," she accepted, placing her delicate hand in his. The touch sent an electric current through both of them. Vincent felt as if he were holding the hand of a ghost, while Anna experienced an inexplicable familiarity, as if that hand had held hers before in some forgotten dream. As they moved onto the dance floor, Anna could not have imagined that she had just taken the first step towards a mystery that would change her life forever, nor that the man who gently guided her through the steps of the waltz carried secrets that could destroy them both. The waltz flowed around them like a river of melody, but Vincent barely heard the music. His senses were completely absorbed by the woman in his arms, the soft scent of lavender that emanated from her hair, the delicacy of her hand resting on his shoulder, the way she moved with natural grace, as if she had been born to dance in Boston's most elegant ballrooms. "How long have you resided in Boston, miss?" he asked, his voice carefully controlled, though his heart beat irregularly. "Only 3 days," Anna replied, her blue eyes meeting his with genuine curiosity. "Aunt Cordelia insisted I needed to become acquainted with society. I fear I am a little lost in this world." Vincent almost smiled at her refreshing honesty. Evelyn would never have admitted such vulnerability, especially not to a stranger. "And what do you think of our city so far?" Anna considered the question as they twirled gracefully across the floor. "It is magnificent, but also intimidating. People seem to speak in codes I don't fully comprehend. In Concord, when someone had something to say, they simply said it. This time Vincent couldn't repress a genuine smile. Sincerity is a rare quality in our circles, Miss Whitmore. I hope Boston doesn't deprive you of that virtue." When the waltz came to an end, Vincent felt an inexplicable reluctance to release her. But etiquette required him to lead her back to her aunt. So he offered his arm and escorted her across the ballroom, ignoring the whispers that followed them like shadows. "Thank you for the dance, Mr. Blackwell," Anna said with a graceful curtsy. "It was truly delightful." Vincent took her gloved hand and kissed it delicately, a gesture that elicited more murmurs among the onlookers. The pleasure was entirely mine. As he walked away, Anna felt a strange emptiness, as if something important had been taken from her presence. Cordelia approached immediately, her brows furrowed with concern. "Anna, my dear, we need to talk," she murmured, guiding her niece to a more private alcove decorated with palms in Chinese porcelain pots. "There is something I must tell you about Mr. Blackwell." "He seemed genuinely kind," Anna said, still watching Vincent's elegant figure as he greeted other guests. There was something magnetic about him, a melancholy that awakened her natural compassion. "He is a good man, I don't question that," Cordelia sighed heavily. "But his history is complicated. He was married before Anna. His wife died in very strange circumstances." Anna turned her attention completely to her aunt. "Strange how?" "Evelyn Blackwell was found dead in her private garden one October morning, 5 years ago. She had been perfectly healthy the night before, had dined with Vincent and retired to her chambers as usual. In the morning they found her lying among the roses, as if she had simply fallen asleep and never woken up." A shiver ran through Anna. "How did she die?" "No one knows for certain. The physician found no signs of illness or injury. Some whisper about poison, others about a fragile heart, but the truth is, it remains a mystery to this day." Cordelia paused, studying her niece's pale face. "But it's not just her death that makes this situation so disturbing, dear. It's your appearance. My appearance? You are the living image of Evelyn Blackwell. Not just a passing resemblance, you could be her twin sister. That's why everyone was so shocked when you entered. To many here present, it was like seeing a ghost." Anna felt her legs buckle slightly. This explained the stares, the silence, the disturbing intensity in Vincent's eyes when he first saw her. "How is that possible?" "I don't know, my dear. Your father never mentioned any connection to the Blackwell family, and I myself know of none." Cordelia gently touched Anna's arm. "Perhaps it is merely an extraordinary coincidence of nature." But Anna instinctively felt there was more to the story than coincidence. There was something familiar about Vincent, about this place, about the whole situation that she couldn't identify. It was as if she were remembering a half-forgotten dream. From the other side of the ballroom, Vincent watched the two women converse, his mind working frantically. He had sent his coachman with an urgent message for his private investigator, instructing him to discover everything about the Whitmore family of Concord. It could not be mere coincidence. Nature did not create such perfect copies by chance. "Vincent," a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to find Jonathan Ashworth, his lawyer and longtime friend, approaching with a concerned expression. "We need to talk." "Not now, Jonathan. Especially now." Jonathan lowered his voice. "Half of Boston society is speculating about this young woman's identity. Some are already whispering about resurrections and supernatural phenomena. This is not good for your reputation or your business." Vincent shot a cold glance at his friend. "My reputation has survived far worse accusations. Yes, but this is different. This young woman is a living reminder of Evelyn, and you know how people still talk about your wife's death. Some never fully believed the official explanation. And you, Jonathan?" Vincent's voice dropped dangerously low. "Do you believe the official explanation?" Jonathan hesitated, and that hesitation spoke volumes. "I believe you loved Evelyn more than your own life, and that her death nearly destroyed you. But I also know that Evelyn had secrets, Vincent. Secrets she never shared, not even with you." Vincent clenched his fists. He knew Jonathan was right. There were aspects of Evelyn's personality that remained mysterious until the end. Her unexplained absences, the letters she burned before he could read them, the nightmares that made her wake screaming, but about which she refused to speak. "This young woman might be an opportunity to find answers," Vincent said finally. "Or it might just be what it seems, an extraordinary coincidence. And what if it's neither?" Jonathan questioned. "What if someone orchestrated this resemblance for reasons we don't yet understand?" The suggestion hit Vincent like a physical blow. The possibility that Anna's appearance was the result of some deliberate manipulation had not occurred to him. But now that Jonathan had planted the seed of doubt, it began to grow in his mind. His eyes found Anna again across the ballroom. She was talking to Margaret Pemberton now, her expression sweet and attentive as she listened to the hostess speak. There was no artifice in her manner, no sign of dissimulation. If she was playing a part, she was the most talented actress he had ever encountered. "I will discover the truth," Vincent murmured, more to himself than to Jonathan, "no matter what it is or where it leads me." Meanwhile, Anna found herself being introduced to various members of Boston's elite, each studying her with poorly disguised curiosity. She answered questions politely, but part of her mind remained focused on the mysterious man who had danced with her. There was a deep pain in Vincent Blackwell that resonated with something in her own soul, a sorrow she recognized despite not understanding its origin. When the reception finally came to an end and Cordelia announced it was time to leave, Anna felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. Her eyes sought Vincent one last time and found him watching her from the balcony overlooking the garden, his dark silhouette outlined against the flickering torchlights. Even at a distance, she could feel the intensity of his gaze, and knew instinctively that this encounter had marked the beginning of something significant and irreversible. As Cordelia's coachman drove them back through the streets of Boston, Anna pressed her face against the carriage window, watching the illuminated mansions pass by. But her thoughts remained fixed on the grieving man who had held her hand as if he were holding a piece of his own broken heart. She could not know that. At this very moment, Vincent stood in his private study, contemplating an oil portrait of Evelyn that had been painted only weeks before her death, comparing every feature with the images of Anna that had permanently etched themselves into his memory. The morning sun filtered through the silk curtains of Vincent's private library, creating golden patterns on the leather-bound volumes that lined the walls from floor to ceiling. He had not slept. He had been sitting in his dark green velvet armchair for hours, contemplating Evelyn's portrait, which he had ordered brought from the main drawing room during the early hours. A discreet knock on the door roused him from his turbulent thoughts. "Enter," he said, his voice hoarse with weariness. His butler, Williams, entered carrying a tray with tea and morning correspondence. "Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Morrison has arrived. He says he has urgent information." Morrison was his private investigator, a discreet and efficient man who had served Vincent faithfully for over a decade. If he had appeared so early, it meant he had discovered something significant about Anna Whitmore. Send him in immediately. Moments later, Henry Morrison entered the library, his thin face etched with haste. At 50, he possessed the unremarkable appearance that made him perfect for his work. He was the type of man who went unnoticed in crowds, yet observed everything with piercing eyes. "Mr. Blackwell," he greeted with a quick bow. "I have obtained some preliminary information about Miss Whitmore." Vincent leaned forward, his fingers tightening on the arms of the armchair. "Continue." "She is exactly who she claims to be. Anna Whitmore, daughter of William Whitmore, who owned a modest farm in Concord. Her father died of pneumonia last winter, leaving her practically destitute. Cordelia Ashford is indeed her aunt, William's sister." Morrison paused, consulting his notes. "But there's something peculiar, sir." "What?" "William Whitmore was not born in Concord. He appeared there approximately 25 years ago, bought the farm with money no one knew the source of, and married a local woman named Catherine Mills. Anna was born 2 years later." Vincent felt his heart quicken. "And before that? Where did he come from?" "That's where things get interesting, sir. I managed to trace some old records. William Whitmore was born here in Boston. He was the son of a textile merchant from the Port District." Morrison hesitated. "And there's more." "He had a younger sister, sir. A sister who disappeared when she was just 16. The blood ran cold in Vincent's veins. "What was her name?" "Evelyn Whitmore." The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent rose abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked his well-tended gardens. The same window from which he could see the rose bed where Evelyn had been found. "That means Anna is—" His voice failed him. "Your late wife's niece, sir. If the records are correct, Anna Whitmore is Evelyn's niece." Vincent rested his forehead against the cold window pane. This explained the extraordinary resemblance, but it raised even more disturbing questions. Why had Evelyn never mentioned having a brother? Why had she hidden her past so completely? Is there anything else, Morrison? I'm still investigating, sir, but I found something that may be relevant. The textile merchant, William and Evelyn's father, suddenly went bankrupt in 1820. There were rumors at the time about gambling debts and dangerous creditors. The family dispersed almost immediately after that. Vincent turned to face his investigator. I want you to discover everything. Every detail about the Whitmore family, about what happened in 1820, about why Evelyn never mentioned having a brother. And I want to know more about Anna, her upbringing, her habits, the people who knew her in Concord. Certainly, sir. But may I suggest caution? If Miss Anna doesn't know about the family connection— She must know, Vincent interrupted decisively. No one hides their own history so completely by chance. As Morrison retired to continue his investigations, Vincent remained in the library, his mind working frantically. The revelation changed everything. Anna wasn't just a stranger who resembled Evelyn, she was family. But why had she appeared now? Why had Cordelia chosen this very moment to bring her to Boston? Across town, in the modest residence Cordelia had rented for her stay in Boston, Anna sat by the drawing-room window, contemplating the busy streets. She had slept poorly, haunted by fragmented dreams where she danced eternally with Vincent Blackwell in ballrooms that transformed into gloomy gardens. You are very thoughtful this morning. Dear, observed Cordelia, entering the room with a steaming cup of tea. Anna accepted the drink gratefully, allowing the aromatic steam to warm her face. Aunt Cordelia, may I ask you a question about Papa's family? Cordelia stiffened almost imperceptibly. Naturally. What do you wish to know? Papa never spoke about his youth or his family. He always said the past didn't matter, only the present and the future. But now, after what happened last night— Anna paused, choosing her words carefully. Did you know any other members of our family besides Papa? Why do you ask, my dear? Because I felt something strange when I met Mr. Blackwell. A familiarity I can't explain. And the way everyone looked at me. You said I resemble his late wife, but it seemed more than a simple resemblance. Cordelia placed her own cup on the small table beside her armchair, her hands trembling slightly. She had feared this conversation would come, but had hoped for more time to prepare herself. Anna, she began softly, there are things about our family history that are complicated. Anna felt her heart quicken. What kind of things? Your father had a younger sister. A sister he loved deeply, but from whom he was separated due to painful circumstances. Cordelia sighed deeply. Her name was Evelyn. The name hit Anna like a lightning bolt. The teacup slipped from her hands, shattering against the polished wooden floor. Evelyn Blackwell was my aunt? Yes, dear. Your aunt, who died before you could meet her. Anna rose abruptly, walking to the cold fireplace, trying to process this extraordinary revelation. Why did Papa never tell me? Why did he hide that he had a sister? Because he blamed himself for their separation. When the family faced financial difficulties, William believed it would be best if he disappeared, to protect Evelyn from associations that might harm her marriage prospects. He was young and proud, and thought he was doing the right thing. Tears began to stream down Cordelia's cheeks. He never imagined he wouldn't see her again. But she married well, Anna said slowly. She became Mrs. Blackwell. Yes, she made an advantageous marriage, but William only learned of it years later, when he had already built a new life in Concord. He received occasional news through mutual acquaintances, but never had the courage to make contact. He felt he had lost the right to be a part of her life. Anna felt tears burning her eyes. And when did she die? William was devastated. He wept for weeks, lamenting all the unspoken words, all the lost years. It was one of the reasons his own health began to decline. The young woman turned to face her aunt, new understanding illuminating her features. That's why you brought me to Boston. It wasn't to find a husband, it was so that you could know the part of your heritage your father was too proud to give you, Cordelia completed. And perhaps so that Vincent Blackwell might find some peace, seeing that part of Evelyn still lives in the world through you. Anna walked slowly back to her chair, her mind trying to absorb all the implications of this revelation. Vincent had not seen just a stranger who resembled his wife. He had seen the niece of the woman he had loved and lost. The familiarity she had felt was not imagination. It was blood recognizing blood, soul recognizing soul. What should I do now? She asked softly. That depends on what your heart tells you, dear. You can return to Concord and live quietly, knowing the truth but never acting upon it. Or you can choose to explore this connection, discover more about Evelyn, and perhaps help Vincent find the answers he has been seeking for 5 years. Anna closed her eyes, thinking of the pain she had seen on Vincent's face, of the way he had held her hand as if she were precious beyond comprehension. There was something unfinished between him and Evelyn, something that death had left unresolved. I want to get to know him better, she said finally. I want to learn about Evelyn, about the family I never knew. And if I can bring some comfort to Mr. Blackwell, Cordelia smiled through her tears, then we must begin by preparing you properly. If you are to move in Vincent Blackwell's social circles, you will need appropriate gowns, instruction in refined etiquette, and a deeper understanding of high society customs. As the two women began to plan Anna's social transformation, neither of them could imagine that Vincent Blackwell, at this very moment, was making his own decisions on how to proceed. He had decided to court her properly, not merely to satisfy his obsession with the physical resemblance, but to uncover what family secrets might shed light on the mysteries surrounding Evelyn's death. The morning was turning into afternoon, when Anna finally allowed herself to contemplate the magnitude of what she was about to undertake. She was no longer just a simple country girl, seeking her place in the world. She was the key to a mystery that had tormented one of Boston's most powerful men for 5 long years. 3 days had passed since the revelation about Anna's true identity, and Vincent found himself in his private study, meticulously studying the documents Morrison had managed to gather about the Whitmore family. Each new piece of information only deepened the mystery surrounding Evelyn and her premature death. A firm knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Williams entered carrying a calling card on a silver tray. Mr. Blackwell, Miss Cordelia Ashford requests an audience. She is accompanied by Miss Whitmore. Vincent felt his pulse quicken. He had waited for this moment, but now that it had arrived, he wasn't sure how to proceed. Show them to the blue drawing room. I will be with them in a few minutes. He needed time to compose himself, to decide how much he would reveal about his discoveries. He looked at himself in the Venetian mirror that adorned his study wall, noticing the dark shadows beneath his eyes. The sleepless nights were leaving their mark. When he finally descended to the blue drawing room, he found Anna admiring the family portrait hanging above the Italian marble fireplace. She wore a sea-green silk dress that enhanced the color of her eyes, and her hair was arranged in a more sophisticated style than on the night of the ball. Cordelia had clearly invested in her social transformation. Mr. Blackwell. Cordelia rose and made a respectful curtsy. Thank you for receiving us on such short notice. The pleasure is mine, Vincent replied, though his eyes were fixed on Anna. She turned to greet him, and again he felt that familiar impact, as if Evelyn had returned to life. Miss Whitmore, he said, taking her gloved hand and kissing it delicately. You are radiant this afternoon. Anna flushed slightly. Thank you, Mr. Blackwell. I hope you don't consider us impertinent for this visit. On the contrary, I was hoping for an opportunity to speak with you both. Vincent gestured for them to sit on the armchairs upholstered in blue and gold brocade. I have information I believe will be of interest to both of you. Cordelia and Anna exchanged meaningful glances. We also have revelations to share, Cordelia said carefully. Vincent leaned forward, his hands clasped. Then allow me to begin. I took the liberty of investigating the history of the Whitmore family. Anna felt a pang of anxiety. And what did you discover? That William Whitmore was my late wife's brother. Evelyn never mentioned having family, but records confirm that she and your father were siblings. Vincent paused, observing the expressions of the two women. This means, Miss Anna, that you are Evelyn's niece. We already know that, Anna said softly. Aunt Cordelia told me a few days ago. That's why we came. We wanted to be honest with you about the family connection. Vincent felt a mixture of relief and admiration for her honesty. Evelyn would have hidden such information until she could gain some advantage from it. I appreciate your frankness, but this raises questions that have tormented me for years. What kind of questions? Cordelia asked. Vincent rose and walked to the window overlooking the gardens. Why did Evelyn never mention having a brother? Why did she completely hide her past? And most importantly, he turned to face the two women. What other secrets did she keep? Anna saw the raw pain in his face and felt her heart clench with compassion. Perhaps she simply wanted to forget the past. According to Aunt Cordelia, there were painful circumstances that separated Papa and Evelyn. Their father's bankruptcy, Vincent nodded. Morrison found that out too. But there's more, Miss Anna. Much more. He returned to his seat and pulled a leather folder from a side table drawer. Evelyn regularly received letters. Letters she burned immediately after reading. She left the house at strange hours, always alone, always refusing to explain where she was going. And in the last few months before her death, she seemed terrified of something. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine. Terrified of what? I don't know. She would wake up screaming from nightmares, but she never told me what she dreamt about. There were nights when I found her in the library, staring out the windows as if expecting to see something or someone in the gardens. Vincent opened the folder and took out several sheets of paper. I found this among her belongings after her death. He held out the papers to Anna. They were fragments of letters, pieces that had apparently escaped the flames. The handwriting was elegant, but the remaining words were, "Disturbing. You cannot escape what you have. Done. The truth. Always, you will pay for your silence." Anna felt her hands tremble as she held the fragments. Who wrote this? I have no idea. I don't recognize the handwriting, and there's no signature on any of the pieces that remained. Vincent studied Anna's pale face. I was hoping you or your aunt might recognize something familiar. Cordelia examined the fragments carefully, frowning. The handwriting appears educated, from someone of high social standing. But I don't recognize the style. There's something else, Vincent continued. The night before her death, Evelyn told me something strange. She said that if anything happened to her, I should look for EW. I thought it was delirium, perhaps fever, but now, EW, Anna repeated slowly. Evelyn Whitmore. Perhaps she was referring to her maiden name, or perhaps someone else, Vincent suggested. Someone with the same initials. A heavy silence descended upon the drawing room. Anna could feel the weight of Vincent's expectations, his hope that she could provide answers he had desperately sought for years. But the truth was, she knew very little about Evelyn, and what she was discovering disturbed her deeply. Mr. Blackwell, she said finally. I would like to see where Evelyn was found. Vincent seemed surprised by the request. Are you sure? It might be disturbing. I need to understand. If I am to discover the truth about my aunt, I need to see every aspect of her life, including... She hesitated. Including her death. Vincent nodded slowly. Very well. The gardens are preserved exactly as they were that morning. They exited through the French door leading to the formal gardens. The afternoon air was cool, laden with the scent of late roses and the earthy aroma of approaching autumn. Anna walked in silence beside Vincent, while Cordelia followed a few steps behind. The rose garden was in a more private area of the estate, surrounded by tall hedges that isolated it from the rest of the grounds. It was an intimate and romantic space, with winding paths between carefully cultivated beds and a small marble pavilion in the center. It was there, Vincent said, his voice almost a whisper, pointing to a spot near the pavilion. She was lying among the white roses, as if she had simply laid down to rest. Anna approached the spot, feeling an inexplicable sadness. She knelt and gently touched the petals of the roses growing there. How was she dressed? Her blue silk robe, the same one she wore to sleep. Her feet were bare, as if she had come directly from her room. Vincent joined her, kneeling beside her. There were no signs of struggle, no visible injuries. The doctor said she appeared to have died in her sleep. Anna closed her eyes, trying to imagine Evelyn's last moments. What time of night did she leave her room? I don't know. We had separate rooms, as is customary. I had last seen her during dinner, around 8 o'clock. She seemed agitated, distracted. She said she had a headache and retired early. And you heard nothing during the night? Vincent shook his head. My room is in the opposite wing of the house. If she had screamed... He stopped, the pain evident in his voice. Anna opened her eyes and looked around the garden. Something didn't seem right. Why would Evelyn have left the house in the middle of the night to come to the garden? And why specifically here, in this isolated spot? Mr. Blackwell, was this Evelyn's favorite spot on the estate? No, he replied slowly. In fact, she rarely came here. She preferred the front gardens, where there was more light and movement. This garden always seemed too melancholic for her taste. Anna felt a strange chill. If this wasn't Evelyn's favorite place, why had she chosen to die here? Or perhaps it hadn't been a choice. Was there any evidence that she wasn't alone? Anna asked, her voice carefully controlled. Vincent studied her intently. The investigators found nothing conclusive, but... He hesitated. But? There were footprints in the damp earth near the body. Footprints that appeared larger than Evelyn's. Anna's heart pounded. And what did the investigators say about that? That they could have been made by any of the gardeners the day before. The night's rain had softened the earth, making it difficult to determine when the footprints were made. Anna rose slowly, her mind working quickly. There were too many inconsistencies in the official version of Evelyn's death. A woman who rarely visited the rose garden mysteriously died there. Threatening letters were regularly burned. Nightmares tormented her nights. Mr. Blackwell, she said, turning to face him. I believe Evelyn was murdered. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Vincent stood motionless, his face paling. Murdered? Repeated Cordelia, who had approached to hear the conversation. All the evidence points to it, Anna continued, her voice gaining firmness. The threatening letters, her fear in the final weeks, the strange choice of location, the unidentified footprints. Someone lured her to this garden that night, and someone made sure she would never return home. Vincent remained silent for a long moment, absorbing the implications of Anna's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. If you are right, then Evelyn's killer is still free. And if he finds out about you, about your resemblance to her... He didn't need to finish the sentence. Anna felt a shiver, but she lifted her chin with determination. Then we will have to find him before he finds us. The week following the revelation in the rose garden passed in a succession of tense days and discreet investigations. Anna had temporarily moved to Vincent's estate at his invitation and with Cordelia's cautious approval, who remained her chaperone. Constant proximity to Vincent awakened feelings in her that grew deeper each day. But the shadow of Evelyn's mysterious death hung over any possibility of happiness. Vincent had converted one of the smaller rooms of the mansion into an impromptu investigation center. The walls were covered with maps of Boston, detailed timelines of Evelyn's last months of life, and copies of all the documents Morrison had managed to gather about the Whitmore family. Anna spent hours studying these materials, looking for patterns that might reveal the identity of her aunt's killer. I found something, she said one rainy afternoon, looking up from the papers spread across the mahogany table. Vincent was standing by the window, watching the drops slide down the glass, lost in dark thoughts. He turned immediately, approaching the table. What did you discover? Anna pointed to a series of dates she had circled in red on an 1842 calendar. Observe these dates. They correspond to the days when the servants reported that Evelyn received mysterious letters. There's a pattern. She always received correspondence 3 days before the new moon. Vincent leaned over the table, studying the markings. That suggests whoever was sending the letters had knowledge of lunar calendars. Perhaps someone involved with navigation or astronomy, or someone who simply wanted to create a sense of ritualism about the communications, Anna suggested, to heighten the psychological terror. Morrison entered the room at this moment, carrying a new folder of documents. His expression was grim. Mr. Blackwell, Miss Whitmore, I have troubling news. Go on, Vincent said, straightening up. I've been investigating the creditors who caused Evelyn and William's father's bankruptcy in 1820. Most were legitimate bankers, but one name caught my attention, Edmund Whitlock. Morrison paused, consulting his notes. He wasn't a common creditor. He was known for lending money to aristocratic families in distress, but with extremely harsh terms. Anna felt a chill run down her spine. E.W., she murmured. Edmund Whitlock has the same initials Evelyn mentioned. Precisely, Morrison nodded. And there's more. Whitlock is still alive and residing in Boston. He never married, never had children, and dedicated his entire life to collecting debts and secrets from the city's most prominent families. Vincent clenched his fists. Where can we find him? He maintains offices in the financial district, but rarely appears there during the day. His neighbors report that he mainly goes out at night, always alone, always dressed in black. Morrison hesitated. There are rumors, sir. Rumors that he keeps detailed records of all the families who have ever owed him money, including secrets he discovered in the process of collection. Anna rose abruptly from her chair, walking to the window where Vincent had been moments before. If Whitlock was blackmailing Evelyn with information about the family's bankruptcy, that would explain her fear and the regular letters. But why kill her? Vincent asked. If she was paying for silence, why eliminate her? Perhaps she had discovered something about him, Morrison suggested. Or perhaps she was planning to expose him. Anna turned to face the two men, a new determination shining in her eyes. We need to confront him directly. Absolutely not, Vincent said immediately. If he killed Evelyn, you are in danger simply by existing. Your resemblance to her might awaken memories he prefers to keep buried. Exactly why I need to speak with him, Anna insisted. My appearance might make him make a mistake, reveal something he would keep hidden from you. Vincent approached her, his hands gently holding her shoulders. Anna, I cannot risk losing you too. Not after. He stopped, the words caught in his throat. Not after what? She asked softly, her blue eyes meeting his. Not after falling in love with you, he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Anna felt her heart quicken, but also a deep sadness. How could she be sure that Vincent's feelings were genuine for her and not an extension of his lost love for Evelyn? Vincent, she said carefully, how can you be sure you're not seeing Evelyn? When you look at me? He released her shoulders, stepping back slightly, because you are completely different from her in every way that matters. Evelyn was beautiful, but there was a coldness in her that I always tried to ignore. You possess a genuine kindness that she never had. Evelyn kept secrets for the pleasure of controlling others. You seek the truth to bring justice. Anna felt tears burning her eyes. But still, our physical resemblance is what brought me to you, he interrupted. But it's not what makes me love you. Morrison, who had remained discreetly silent during this intimate exchange, cleared his throat softly. Forgive the interruption, but I believe we have a unique opportunity tonight. Both turned to him. What kind of opportunity? Vincent asked. Whitlock frequents the Maritime Club every Wednesday for his card games. It's one of the few places where he socializes, however minimally. If we want to observe him without arousing suspicion. Perfect, Anna said decisively. We will go tonight. We will do no such thing, Vincent protested. I will go with Morrison. You will stay here, safe. If you go without me, I will go alone, Anna declared with a firmness that surprised even herself. Vincent, I need to do this. For Evelyn, for my father, who could never reconcile with his sister, and for us. Our relationship can never fully flourish as long as the ghost of the unidentified killer hangs over our lives. Vincent recognized the determination in her eyes, the same determination he had seen when she insisted on visiting the rose garden. He knew that trying to stop her would only result in more dangerous actions on her part. Very well, he said finally, but on my conditions. You will remain in the carriage while Morrison and I observe Whitlock. If anything goes wrong, you will leave immediately. Anna nodded, although she was already planning how she could get closer to the situation when the time came. That night, a thick fog had descended upon Boston, creating a perfect atmosphere for clandestine activities. Anna wore a dark cape over a simple dress, her hair hidden under a hood. Vincent had insisted that she appear as ordinary as possible, not to attract unnecessary attention. The Maritime Club was located on a side street near the port, a discreet building that served businessmen and merchants who preferred their transactions away from the eyes of refined society. Vincent parked the carriage in a position that offered a clear view of the entrance, but kept them in the shadows. "Remember," he said to Anna, "you stay here no matter what happens." She nodded, but her fingers were already discreetly testing the carriage door latch. Vincent and Morrison descended and walked casually towards the club. Anna watched them disappear into the entrance, then counted to 100 before silently stepping out of the carriage. She knew she was disobeying Vincent's instructions, but something within her insisted that her presence would be crucial to the success of the night. The club's back entrance was poorly guarded, with only an elderly doorman who seemed more interested in his rum bottle than in watching for unauthorized access. Anna managed to slip into the building, following the sounds of male voices and the clinking of glasses. The card room was dimly lit by oil lamps, creating circles of yellowish light where groups of men hunched over green tables. Anna hid behind a decorative pilaster, from where she could observe the entire room without being seen. It wasn't difficult to identify Edmund Whitlock. He was alone at a corner table, a thin man of about 60 with meticulously combed gray hair and clothes that, though well cut, had seen better days. His eyes were small and dark, constantly moving, observing the other players with an intensity that made Anna feel uncomfortable even from a distance. Vincent and Morrison had positioned themselves at a nearby table, feigning interest in their own cards while discreetly observing Whitlock. Anna could see the tension in Vincent's shoulders, the way his fingers squeezed his cards with excessive force. It was then that Whitlock looked up from his game, and his gaze met Anna's across the dimly lit room. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. His cards fell from his hands like dry leaves, his face paled until it was almost gray, and he stood up so abruptly that his chair toppled backward. "Evelyn!" The word escaped his lips in a harsh whisper that carried across the silent room. All eyes turned to Anna, and she knew the moment of truth had arrived. The silence that descended upon the Maritime Club was sepulchral. Every man in the fay room remained motionless, cards suspended in the air, glasses stopped midway to their lips. The only thing moving was the cigar smoke, lazily swirling towards the nicotine-stained ceiling. Edmund Whitlock remained standing, his eyes fixed on Anna with an intensity that bordered on madness. His hands trembled visibly, and a bead of sweat trickled down his temple despite the chill of the October night. "Impossible," he murmured, his brittle voice echoing through the silent room. "You are dead. I saw you die." The words struck Anna like ice daggers. Vincent rose instantly from his table, knocking over his own cards in the process. Morrison followed. His hand discreetly sliding inside his coat where Anna knew he carried a pistol. "Mr. Whitlock!" Vincent's voice cut through the tense air like a blade. "I believe we have met." Vincent Blackwell. Whitlock turned slowly, like a man waking from a nightmare, his eyes still wild with shock. "Blackwell," he repeated mechanically. "Yes, of course. The bereaved widower." The way he pronounced the words carried a deliberate cruelty that made Anna immediately understand the type of man they were facing. This was not just a common moneylender. It was someone who found pleasure in the pain of others. "And this young lady," Whitlock continued, his eyes returning to Anna with a disturbing fixation, "would be who, exactly?" Anna stepped out from behind the pilaster, removing her hood and allowing the yellowish lamplight to fully illuminate her face. The effect on Whitlock was even more dramatic up close. He recoiled as if she were an apparition, his breathing becoming ragged. "Anna Whitmore," she said in a clear, firm voice, though her heart was pounding like war drums. "Evelyn's niece." "Whitmore?" Whitlock repeated the surname as if it were a curse. His face, already pale, took on an almost yellowish hue. "So William had a daughter." "He did," Anna confirmed, taking a step towards the man. "And now I am here to discover the truth about what happened to my aunt." Whitlock quickly glanced around the room, realizing for the first time that all the other occupants were observing the scene with poorly disguised fascination. Some had leaned forward in their chairs, others whispered among themselves. It was exactly the kind of public attention a man with secrets would not want. "This is no place for such conversations," he said finally, his voice regaining some composure. "If you wish to speak with me about private matters, I suggest we arrange a proper meeting." "Now," Vincent said, approaching with Morrison at his side. "We will speak now." Whitlock studied the three confronting him, the powerful and determined man, the obviously armed investigator, and the young woman who was a ghostly copy of a woman he had tried to forget for 5 years. He quickly calculated his options and realized he had few. "Very well," he conceded, gesturing towards a small private room at the back of the club. "But our conversation remains confidential." The private room was little more than an alcove with a few worn armchairs and a table stained by years of carelessly placed glasses. Whitlock closed the door behind them and walked to a small window overlooking the alley, his back to the others as he clearly tried to regain his composure. Anna watched him closely, noticing details that confirmed her suspicions about the man's character. His clothes, though well cut, showed signs of careful mending. His gold pocket watch had scratches that suggested it had been pawned and redeemed multiple times. This was a man who had known better days but clung to appearances of respectability. "Mr. Whitlock," Anna began when he finally turned to face them. "My father died without ever having reconciled with his sister. He carried the guilt of their separation until the end of his days. Now I discover that Evelyn also died, but in circumstances none of us fully understand. The circumstances of your aunt's death were investigated by the competent authorities," Whitlock replied carefully. "I fail to see how I can add anything to what has already been determined. You can start by explaining why a man who primarily dealt with port merchants knew a lady of high society well enough to recognize her instantly," Morrison suggested, his voice laced with suspicion. Whitlock hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough to confirm there was more to the story. "Our paths occasionally crossed in social circles." "What kind of social circles?" Vincent pressed. "You yourself just called me a bereaved widower, with a tone that suggested intimate knowledge of my personal situation." "Your wife's death was widely discussed in society," Whitlock replied, but Anna could see sweat forming again on his forehead. "The letters," she said suddenly, a sudden intuition illuminating her mind. "You sent letters to Evelyn." "Letters she burned immediately after reading. The effect of her words was immediate." Whitlock paled even further, if that were possible, and his right hand began to tremble visibly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Letters that arrived 3 days before each new moon," Anna continued, observing every micro-expression on Whitlock's face. "Letters that terrified her so much she started having nightmares." "You are fantasizing." "Then perhaps you can help us understand this," Vincent said, taking the burnt letter fragments from his inner coat pocket. He held them out to Whitlock. "Do you recognize the handwriting?" Whitlock looked at the burnt papers, and Anna saw something shift in his expression. Defensive denial was replaced by something more dangerous, a calculating coldness that made her involuntarily recoil. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice now completely different, stripped of any pretense of courtesy. "Among Evelyn's personal belongings," Vincent replied. "Fragments that escaped her attempts to destroy all evidence of her correspondence." Whitlock walked to the table and sat heavily, as if the weight of years had suddenly descended upon his shoulders. For a long moment, he simply studied the three faces watching him, as if making a fundamental decision. "You have no idea what you are meddling with," he said finally, "nor the dangers you might be inviting upon your heads." "Then enlighten us," Anna said, surprising herself with the firmness of her own voice. "Tell us what secrets my aunt carried that would justify years of threatening correspondence." Whitlock laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Family secrets, my dear Miss Whitmore. The kinds of secrets that can destroy reputations, bring down fortunes, and yes, lead to death." "What kind of secrets?" Vincent insisted, his patience clearly reaching its end. "Your dear father," Whitlock said, looking directly at Anna, "did not leave Boston because of the family bankruptcy. He fled because he had committed a crime." Anna felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "That's a lie. William Whitmore killed a man," Whitlock continued relentlessly. "A creditor who had come to collect gambling debts from his father. It was an accident, according to Evelyn, but still homicide. She helped hide the body and forge evidence to protect her brother. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Anna felt as if she were hearing about strangers, not the gentle father who had raised her with so much love and care. "And you used this information to blackmail Evelyn for years," Vincent said, his voice laden with disgust. "I offered protection," Whitlock corrected. "For a reasonable price." Evelyn lived comfortably as the wife of a respected magnate. It was fair that she paid to keep family secrets buried. "Until something changed," Morrison observed. "Something that made her stop paying." Whitlock hesitated again, and Anna realized they had reached the core of the issue. "In the final months," Whitlock said slowly, "Evelyn discovered something. Something about the death of the man her brother had supposedly killed." "What did she discover?" Anna asked, though part of her feared the answer. "That it wasn't William who killed him," Whitlock admitted finally. "It was she herself. In self-defense when the man tried to force her, William simply helped her hide the body and took the blame to protect his sister's honor." Anna felt nausea rise in her throat. The web of lies and secrets seemed to have no end. And when Evelyn discovered the truth about her own actions, Whitlock continued, she became inconsolable. She began talking about confessing everything, about revealing the truth even if it destroyed her reputation and Vincent's. "So you killed her to silence her," Vincent concluded, his voice deadly. "I did not kill her," Whitlock protested. "When I went to the garden that night to try to dissuade her from her reckless confession, I found her already dead." Anna studied his face intently. "But you know who killed her." Whitlock's silence was answer enough. "Who?" demanded Vincent, taking a threatening step towards the older man. Whitlock looked at each of them, as if weighing his options for the last time. Finally, with a sigh of defeat, he spoke. "Someone who had even more to lose from Evelyn's confession than any of us imagined." Before they could press him for more details, a sound of breaking glass echoed from the club's main room, followed by shouts and the sound of running boots. Morrison moved instantly to the window, looking out into the alley. "We have company," he said grimly. "Armed men surrounding the building." Anna felt her blood run cold as she understood the implication. Someone had discovered where they were. Someone who did not want this conversation to continue. The sound of heavy boots echoed through the narrow corridors of the Maritime Club as Morrison quickly checked his pistol. The yellowish lamplight flickered as armed men surrounded the building, their silhouettes casting threatening shadows against the foggy windows. "How many are there?" Vincent asked, positioning himself instinctively between Anna and the door. "At least 6, Morrison replied, all armed and clearly professionals. Whitlock had paled to a sickly gray hue. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he reached into a small drawer in the table, pulling out an antique revolver that clearly hadn't been used in years. "Who are these men?" Anna demanded, though she already suspected the answer. "People who prefer certain truths to remain buried," Whitlock said, his voice hoarse with terror. "I should have kept my mouth shut." Vincent moved quickly to the window, assessing their escape options. The back alley was blocked by 2 men, both carrying rifles. "We are surrounded." "There's a passage," Whitlock whispered urgently. In Revolution times, this building had smuggling tunnels. "The entrance is behind the bookcase." Before they could respond, the private room door exploded inward. 3 men entered quickly, their weapons pointed directly at the group. The leader was a tall, thin man, with scars that cut across his face like spider webs. "Mr. Whitlock," he said with an accent Anna couldn't identify. "You've spoken too much tonight." "Jameson." Whitlock recognized the man with obvious horror. "I thought you were dead." "Reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated." Jameson smiled chillingly. "As have reports of Mrs. Blackwell's natural demise." Anna felt her blood run cold. This man had been involved in Evelyn's death. "You killed her," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Jameson turned his attention to Anna, and she saw recognition and something akin to panic in his eyes. "Impossible," he murmured. "You should be dead too," Anna finished. Like my aunt? The silence that followed was charged with deadly tension. Vincent took an almost imperceptible step toward Morrison, while Whitlock slowly moved his hand toward the revolver on the table. Evelyn Blackwell died because she uncovered truths that could destroy very powerful people, Jameson finally said. And you have made the same mistake. What truths? Anna pressed, buying time as she watched Vincent position himself for possible action. That the creditor's death in 1820 was not accidental, nor in self-defense, Jameson revealed. It was premeditated murder, orchestrated by someone who wanted to eliminate an inconvenient witness. Anna felt the world spin around her. Witness to what? To a smuggling scheme that involved some of Boston's most respected names. The creditor had discovered the operations and was pressing for a share of the profits. Whitlock made a strangled sound. So William and Evelyn were innocent? Completely. They just had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. When they found the body, they were coerced into helping with the cover-up under threat of being framed for the crime. Vincent finally grasped the magnitude of the conspiracy. And years later, when Evelyn began to question the official version, she became a risk we couldn't allow, Jameson confirmed. Especially when she started investigating on her own, asking dangerous questions about specific identities. Anna felt nausea rising in her throat. Who is behind all of this? Jameson hesitated, looking at his associates as if seeking confirmation. People you know. People you trusted. At this moment, Morrison acted. With a swift movement, he pushed Anna behind the table while simultaneously drawing his pistol. Vincent followed suit, knocking over one of the lamps to create confusing darkness. The ensuing shootout was brief, but intense. In the darkness, Anna could hear Vincent shouting instructions, the sound of glass shattering, and the groans of wounded men. When the smoke finally cleared, two of the attackers lay motionless on the floor, while Jameson had disappeared through the broken window. Whitlock was wounded, clutching his left arm where a bullet had struck, but still conscious. Morrison had sustained only scrapes, while Vincent had a profusely bleeding cut on his forehead. "We need to get out of here immediately," Morrison said, checking the corridor. Jameson didn't come back alone, and reinforcements could arrive at any moment. Whitlock, despite his injury, staggered toward the bookshelf. With a push at a certain point, the shelf rotated, revealing a narrow, dark passage. "This tunnel leads to the harbor," he explained. "You can escape that way, but I won't be able to keep pace." "We're not leaving you behind," Anna said decisively. "You have to," Whitlock insisted. "I'll slow them down, and besides..." He paused, looking directly at Anna. "There's something else you need to know before you go." Anna moved closer to him, supporting him against the wall. "What is it?" "Your Aunt Cordelia," he said with difficulty. "She isn't who you think she is." Anna's blood ran cold. "What do you mean by that?" "Cordelia Ashford wasn't really your aunt. She was one of the people involved in the original smuggling scheme. When Jameson and his superiors discovered your existence and resemblance to Evelyn, they instructed her to bring you to Boston." Vincent gripped Whitlock by the shoulders. "For what purpose?" "To use your resemblance to Evelyn to confuse witnesses and cast doubt on what really happened that night in the garden. If questions arose, they could suggest that Evelyn had faked her own death." Anna felt as if the ground had completely vanished beneath her feet. Cordelia, the woman who had cared for her, who had promised to help her find her place in the world, was part of the conspiracy that had killed her real aunt. But she seemed genuinely surprised by my resemblance to Evelyn, Anna protested weakly. "She's an experienced actress," Whitlock said. "She's had years to perfect her performance." Sounds of voices and rapid footsteps echoed from the main corridor. Their pursuers had found their way to their location. "Go now." Whitlock pushed them toward the tunnel. "I'll try to hold them here." Vincent took Anna's hand, pulling her into the dark passage. Morrison followed, closing the secret passage behind them just seconds before they heard the drawing-room door being broken down again. The tunnel was narrow and damp, clearly unused for decades. Anna stumbled several times in the complete darkness, staying on her feet only by Vincent's firm support. Behind them, they could hear muffled sounds that suggested Whitlock was fulfilling his promise to delay their pursuers. After what felt like hours of walking through the oppressive darkness, They finally emerged into an abandoned cellar near the harbor. The salty scent of the sea and the sound of waves against the piers greeted them like a blessing. "The estate," Vincent said urgently. "Cordelia is still there. If she's part of this, she might be waiting for us," Anna completed, understanding the implication. Morrison checked his pistol, or she might have disappeared as soon as they learned we'd uncovered the truth. They carefully emerged from the cellar, checking the deserted streets before hurrying toward where Vincent had left the carriage. To their relief, it was still there, although the coachman looked nervous. "Mr. Blackwell," the man said as they approached, "a lady was here asking for you. She said it was urgent that you meet her at the estate immediately." Anna and Vincent exchanged grim glances. It was obvious Cordelia knew they had discovered her true identity. The journey back to Vincent's estate was tense and silent. Anna struggled to process all the night's revelations, the truth about her father's and Evelyn's deaths, Cordelia's real identity, and the extent of the conspiracy that had destroyed so many lives. "Anna," Vincent said softly as they approached the mansion, "no matter what happens tonight, I want you to know that my feelings for you are genuine. You are not a replacement for Evelyn. You are unique and precious in your own right." Anna squeezed his hand, finding strength in his words even amidst the chaos. "I know," she said. "And I love you too, Vincent. Not because of any connection to Evelyn, but for the man you are." The estate was strangely silent when they arrived. Lights glowed in the main windows, but there was no visible movement. Morrison drew his pistol again as they approached the main entrance. The front door was ajar, an ominous sign that made them all slow their pace. Vincent pushed the door open slowly, revealing the main hall bathed in the golden light of the chandeliers. "Cordelia?" Anna called out, her voice echoing through the empty space. "I'm here, dear," came the familiar reply from the blue drawing room. "Please come in. We have much to discuss." Anna, Vincent, and Morrison walked cautiously toward the voice. They found Cordelia sitting calmly in her favorite armchair, wearing an elegant traveling dress and holding a small silver pistol in her lap. "I regret that you've discovered the truth this way," she said, her voice stripped of any pretense of maternal affection. "I truly hoped we could resolve this more civilly." Anna studied the face of the woman she had thought was her aunt, searching for any sign of the gentle person she had known. "She found none. Why?" she asked simply. Cordelia sighed as if the question were tediously predictable. "Money, my dear. Always money. The smuggling scheme made me very wealthy for many years, until people like Evelyn started asking inconvenient questions." "So you killed her," Vincent said, his voice heavy with hatred. "Not personally," Cordelia corrected. "But yes, I ordered her death." She had become an unacceptable risk to our interests. Anna felt tears burning her eyes. "And my father? He truly knew nothing of this?" "William was genuinely innocent," Cordelia admitted. "A good man who was used by very bad people, including me. And now?" Morrison asked, his own weapon discreet but visible. Cordelia studied the three faces before her. "Now you know too much to live, just as Evelyn knew too much." What followed happened so quickly that Anna barely managed to process it. Cordelia raised her pistol, but Vincent lunged forward, knocking her from the armchair. Morrison moved simultaneously, securing the weapon before it could be used. When the brief but intense struggle ended, Cordelia lay immobilized on the floor, her mask of civility finally completely removed, revealing the cruelty that had always existed beneath. "It's over," Vincent said, helping Anna to her feet. "It's finally over." A week later, Anna found herself in Vincent's rose garden, but this time, no dark shadows loomed over its beauty. Cordelia was in prison awaiting trial, Jameson had been captured attempting to leave the country, and the other conspirators had been exposed and arrested. Whitlock had survived the confrontation at the club and, in exchange for clemency, had provided detailed evidence about the entire smuggling operation. The truth about William's and Evelyn's innocence had finally been established, clearing their names posthumously. Vincent approached from behind, wrapping Anna in his arms as she gazed at the white roses that had witnessed so much suffering. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "Evelyn," Anna replied. "How alone and terrified she must have felt in the last months of her life." I wish we could have uncovered the truth in time to save her. But we did get to the truth, Vincent reminded her. And thanks to your courage, Evelyn can finally rest in peace, knowing that justice has been served. Anna turned in his arms, studying the face of the man she had learned to love, not for the shadow of another woman, but for his own kindness and determination. What happens now? She asked. Vincent smiled, and Anna saw that the shadows that had haunted his eyes for 5 years had finally dissipated. Now, he said, we begin our own story. A story that belongs only to us. He then knelt, taking a diamond ring from his waistcoat pocket. Anna Whitmore, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Not because you resemble someone from my past, but because you are the woman I choose for my future. Anna felt tears of joy running down her cheeks as she reached out her hand to him. Yes, she said, her voice clear and strong. Yes, Vincent Blackwell. I want to build a future with you.